Okay, Marissa, whenever you're ready.
Okay. When I was 10, I went to Seaworld, and it was really cool. My favorite part was, when you can go under the deck and you can see the whales like swimming around through the glass, and they're really huge, and you're like 10 years old, and you're like, holy crap, that's a big animal. And I've always wanted to be a vet, but I remember thinking, I want to be an orca trainer at some point in my life. As some of you may have noticed, I'm not such a fan of Seaworld anymore. 2 years after I went there, I saw in the news that a trainer named Dawn Bradshaw was killed by an orca after a show. It was written off as trainer error, her fault, no big deal, won't happen again. People moved on. What Seaworld doesn't want you to know, though, is that it was not her fault, and that it could have happened to anyone, and it still could happen to anyone. We need to remember that Seaworld is a business. They're a company, and their priority lies in revenue, not in the health of their animals, and really not in the safety of their employees. When we go on vacation, we need to not go to Seaworld. We need to stop giving them money to feed this monster of a company. And we need to stop believing what they say. We need to stop supporting Seaworld because their orcas are physically unhealthy, their orcas are mentally unhealthy, and it's dangerous for people. The first reason we need to stop supporting Seaworld is that their orcas are physically unhealthy. They have open wounds, which opens them up for infection because they're kept in small tanks and they can't get their aggression out and they fight. Now, I looked on SeaWorldCares.com at the average lifespan of an orca that they say it is, and it's 19 to 30 years. Their orcas rarely live past their 40s or 50s. But I looked on the website for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is the government administration that regulates fishing in the ocean, and they have a fact sheet on orcas that says that the average lifespan is actually like that of human, 50 to 100. Seaworld is cutting the lifespans of these animals in half by keeping them in captivity, yet they're trying to convince us that they're not. The second reason we need to stop supporting Seaworld is that their orcas are mentally unhealthy. They're kept in small tanks. I watched an interview with John Hargrove, who was on The Daily Show last year, and he was a trainer at Seaworld for 12 years. And he said that when they're not kept in those display tanks that you see them in, they're kept in a pool that's about the dimensions of a backyard swimming pool. These animals are 20 feet long. You can't keep them in a swimming pool. That takes a huge toll on their mental health. Something else Seaworld does that is really damaging to them is they separate the mothers from the calves, which they used to say they didn't do, but I looked on their website trying to find the page where they said they do, which I know was there last year, and it was gone. But now there's a page that says they don't mind losing family members, and like any other animal, they adapt very quickly after losing their parents. These are intelligent animals, and we can't keep acting like they're not. In the movie Blackfish, some former Seaworld trainers told the stories of when they were there for the mother-calf separation. And after the baby is taken away, the mothers will sit in their tanks and make long-distance calls trying to call their young back. And then once the babies are gone, they just sit in their tank and cry and don't socialize with their tank mates. These are signs that can only be described as grief. And this takes a huge emotional toll on these animals, and it puts them under a lot of stress. This is not healthy for them. The whale that killed Dawn Bradshaw was the prime example of a mentally unhealthy animal. His name was Tilikum. He was born in the wild, taken from his family, and he lived at Sealand. And this brings me to my third point. We need to stop supporting Seaworld because it's dangerous for people. Dawn Bradshaw was actually not the first person Tilikum killed. He was involved in the drowning of a trainer at Sealand during the 80s. And then Seaworld bought him because he's huge and very good for breeding. And they found a man dead in his tank at some point during the 90s. He was just some guy who ended up in the park after hours. Yet the trainers weren't told that he was a dangerous animal. They were not told that he had killed people, and they weren't told that he was aggressive. And they ended up paying a huge price for it. Dawn died because they didn't bother to tell their employees that this is a dangerous animal. These are killer whales. They weigh 8 tons, they're huge, they're predators, and we can't put people in the water with them. It's just not safe for us. Now, do I wish that we could? Of course I do. They're huge, they're cool, they're really cool to see up close, but we're not entitled to them. We don't own them, and we can't put them in captivity and expect it to go well for us or for them.